these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
My fellow Americans, what do you say? Hello, hello, hello. This Wednesday, September 3rd. Good to see you. Thanks for joining in. It's the Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and looking at you on Free Speech TV. First of all, we've got a satellite dish. You know where to find us on DirecTV and the Dish Network. And there we are worldwide on our video stream. TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. The entire civilized world this morning shocked and saddened by that video released yesterday by ISIS the beheading of American journalist Steve Sotloff, exactly 2 weeks to the day after they released the video of the execution of American photojournalist James Foley. President Obama had a news conference in Estonia early this morning, condemning the killing, of course, and saying the mission of the United States continues to be to degrade and destroy ISIS. And to that end, we are working to build a new Iraqi government and to put together a regional coalition, the president said, of forces that can go after ISIS and destroy them both in the air and on the ground. No decision yet on airstrikes against ISIS targets in Syria, although in the light of yesterday's video, many Democrats and Republicans called on the president to launch those strikes immediately. The FBI, meanwhile, looking into the person or persons responsible for hacking into the cloud and releasing those nude photos of Jennifer Lawrence and other celebrities. And the White House says they may, in fact, delay any executive action on immigration until after the midterm elections. Give us a call about any of the above at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us on this Wednesday edition of The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
TV and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
ISIS has struck again. American journalist Steve Sotloff, the latest victim of their barbaric methods. Hey, hello, everybody. With that sad news, it is Wednesday, September 3rd. That's where we start off the show today, the Bill Press Show. Here we go, coast to coast on your local progressive talk radio station. Here we go, coast to coast on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Good to see you today. Thank you for joining us on a very, very busy day and a lot to talk about. And we will cover it all from the President's news conference just about a half an hour ago in Estonia, the latest from there. As well, the latest here in this country and in the Middle East. Boy, what a summer it has been on the foreign policy front. It has been one disaster, one bit of bad news after another. We look forward to hearing from you at 866-55-PRESS and your comments on the news of the day. I look forward to getting your comments on Twitter at PP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Here we go with the team this morning in place, Peter Ugburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Hey, hey.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you for being there. With Alicia Cruz on the phone. She's ready to take your calls, 866-55-PRESS. And if you see us, not just hear us, if you see us, Cyprian Bowling's a man we thank, our videographer, keeping us looking good. How about it?
We're here. Wednesday.
I know.
Already Wednesday.
These 4-day work weeks are A-OK.
They are.
No, it's a 3-day weekend.
Pretty good.
Right.
Yeah, that's the 3-day weekend. That's it, exactly. The Arthur Delaney approach to easing unemployment in this country is
I'm
just
buying.
make everybody a 4-day work week and
I like
stretch it all out. I like it. I like it a lot, too. I've signed on a long time ago. Hey, a big birthday the other day.
Yeah?
That we forgot to celebrate. I didn't even know about it, but thanks to David Letterman, we can catch up with this big birthday.
You know what people like celebrity birthdays? Guess whose birthday it is today? No, it was yesterday. Paul, do you have any idea?
No, I don't.
Dr. Phil, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Phil McGraw.
There it
64 degrees. 64 degrees. 64 years old. And people say, well, what do we get to Dr. Phil? He's 64 years old. And I say, you want to get him something, how about a medical degree?
I like that.
I'm good with that. Boy, I hate Dr. Phil. I'm
he's such a phony.
The worst.
Yeah.
The worst.
Didn't he start on Oprah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't it?
Look, Queen Oprah usually never misses.
I know.
Dr. Phil,
yeah.
it's her fault that we have him.
But, it's like so many of those phony doctors, right?
Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz, same thing. He came from Oprah. But Dr. Laura did not come from Oprah.
Dr. Laura, she doesn't give, she doesn't have a medical degree, right?
She's fake.
Whatever it is, I don't know. It's some, I forget what her
physical
degree
education
is.
or
Something like
weird.
that. Yeah. So, okay.
Unbelievable.
All right, Dr. Phil. Yes, indeed. We have more important things to talk about, and we will get right to them. David Jackson. He and I at the White House together for the briefing. He'll be here to join us. He covers the White House for USA Today. Also, will Jeremy Holden from Media Matters here at the top of the next hour, and then Joe Cirincione, our foreign policy guru. If we ever needed Joe, we need him today.
Yeah, really.
And he'll be on the job today in studio with us a little bit later. And we'll get to this latest ISIS video and what we should do about it. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Yesterday, Bill, at this very time, we told you that Michael Sam was not going to play in the NFL. We may have spoken too soon.
Yes.
Michael Sam flew into Dallas last night. He's going to take a physical for the Dallas Cowboys today. And if he passes that physical, He will be signed as a Dallas Cowboy. He will play for their practice squad.
Practice squad.
Their
right.
practice squad. Now, why would the Cowboys do this? Aside from the fact they want to give him a chance, there's an interesting little insight here. The Cowboys are the only team in the NFL who don't pool their merchandise money with the NFL. And it's also well known that the Michael Sam jersey is one of the best-selling jerseys in the NFL store. So the Cowboys saw a chance to make some money. And fine. That's fine. They're going to make a ton of money off of Michael Sam if they sign him up. Again, if he passes this physical today, he will be a Dallas Cowboy.
He'll
That's
pass
very
the physical.
exciting.
There are very few doubts that he'll be able to pass the physical.
Yeah.
I think
You know what? And good for them. And I hope they make a lot of money off
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Can't say we didn't see this coming. Justin Bieber is in trouble again. He was driving an ATV that collided with a van. Everybody's okay, but after the collision, Bieber got out and started getting physical with the driver of the van, and he was arrested, charged with assault and dangerous driving near his hometown of Ontario.
Good Lord.
Stratford, Ontario.
Yeah. Good Lord. This guy, he's trouble.
You're starting to think he might be trouble, huh?
Good riddance, though. At least he's in Canada now.
Oh, he'll be back.
I was going to say, these Canadians.
He'll be back here very soon. Yeah, you can't trust these Canadians. And in England, there is a new business. It's called the Mistress Card. It is a range of greeting cards for your mistress.
Oh,
if
that's
you are a man having
That's
an affair,
nice. Yeah.
and you want to say it with a card, but they just don't make a card for your mistress, they now have a line just for you. So this whole idea is they
Now,
found
where is
out
this?
This is in England.
God, it's not in France?
You would think so, right?
You would think that when they see the rack of cards, and it has husband, wife, son, daughter, grandmother, the mistress.
The reason that they started this, there's a survey that came out that found that married men spend 12% more on gifts for their mistress than for their wives.
Ooh.
Which
It's a
is bad.
classy move.
That's bad, yeah, real classy, right? So they realized that there's a market out there, so you could buy a card just for you.
Okay. All
It's
right.
about time, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm sure. You know what? The royal family will keep that alone. They'll keep that business going.
Exactly.
Yep, ISIS, they have done it again. You know that by now. The video has been confirmed. It is shocking. It is disgusting. It is barbaric. It is inhuman. And it's what we've come to expect from ISIS, the people that we are dealing with. No respect for any values that we recognize as universal humanitarian values. No respect for human life, no decency at all. These people are not religious zealots. I mean, let's just stop calling them that. They're not. They're just pigs. They're animals. They're inhuman, and they deserve to be just wiped off the face of the earth. I'm sorry, I sound like a hard-ass hardliner, but in this case, I think there's just no other answer. So the question is. Again, the video yesterday showing the execution by beheading of Steven Sotloff, American independent journalist, a freelance journalist, did some work for Time as well. 2 weeks, the video of his beheading released by ISIS that want this worldwide publicity, crave this worldwide publicity, just rejoice in all this worldwide publicity. They don't care if they're condemned by everybody. That's what they want. Released 2 weeks to the day after they released the video of the execution by beheading of American photojournalist James Foley. And, of course, yesterday they threatened to behead yet another journalist, this time a Brit. And it looks like the same man who conducted both beheadings, a British citizen. The question is, what should we do about it? Maybe there are a lot of answers. But I certainly think we have to do something. We can't just do nothing. I am tired of hearing the White House say our thoughts and prayers are with boom, 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 boom. All right, yeah, good. Thoughts and prayers. Yeah, but what are you going to do about it? Now, let me tell a little story. I was at the briefing yesterday, and the briefing started. Nobody knew about this. And then suddenly, everybody's watching their iPhones and looking for breaking news and headlines during the briefing. just to keep up with stuff. And about 3 questions into the briefing, or maybe the second question into, Zeke Miller from Time Magazine, who was in studio with us last week, a very good young reporter, saw on his iPhone that this video had been released. He asked Josh Earnest about it. And Josh, to his credit, not being critical of law, didn't know about it before he walked in. None of us knew about it. Josh could not, obviously, on the spot, confirm the video. Or, he did say, offered condolences to the family and said, we've made every effort we can to rescue Mr. Sotloff. But until we know more, there was not much more he could say. But I must say, I expected, and I'm not the only one, I expected at any minute the president, we were there an hour and 15 minutes in that briefing. I expect at any minute for the president of the United States to walk into the briefing room, to condemn the execution, to just, again, condemn ISIS, and to say, and here, they want a response, here's my response. I have ordered airstrikes against ISIS targets inside of Syria, and they're already underway, and we're going to wipe this gang out. I kept waiting. I put my hand up. I wanted to ask that question. Where is he? What's going on? Don't you think he ought to say or do something before he leaves for Estonia? And nothing. The briefing ended. I talked to Zeke Miller and some of the other reporters. We were saying, where's the president? Where's the president? Everybody said, well, he didn't come into the briefing room, but no doubt before he gets on Marine One to go to Andrews Air Force Base and get on Air Force One and leave for Estonia, he will say something. He will do something in response to this video. Absolutely nothing. Got on Air Force One, went to Estonia. This morning, about 45 minutes ago, the president did hold a news conference with the president of Estonia. And of course, he was asked about this by Ann Compton from ABC News. This was her last trip with the president, by the way. And there were other questions as well. First, the president did confirm that the video is what ISIS says it is.
Overnight, our government determined that tragically Stephen was taken from us in a horrific act of violence.
And the president affirmed that, well, he confirmed the video, but he also insisted that anybody thinks they're going to get away with this, they're just dead wrong.
Those who make the mistake of harming Americans will learn that we will not forget and that our reach is long and that justice will be served.
And do they think we're going to stop the airstrikes in Iraq because of this?
Like people around the world, Americans are repulsed by their barbarism. We will not be intimidated. Their horrific acts only unite us as a country and stiffen our resolve to take the fight against these terrorists.
And the president repeated that our mission is to, he said this last week as well, our mission is to degrade and destroy ISIS. And he said to that end, we have been working to build a new coalition government in Iraq. To that end, we have launched so far, by the way, 120 airstrikes against ISIS missions inside of Iraq. And to that end, he said, we are trying to put together a regional coalition that can follow up in the air and on the ground against ISIS positions, but stop short of saying anything about ISIS, going after ISIS targets inside of Syria, even though surveillance flights have been underway now for just about a week. And even though there are many Republicans and Democrats in Congress yesterday who called on the president to do something more than just condemn the attack. What do you think he ought to do? 866-55-PRESS. I got to tell you, I don't think there's any chance. I don't think there's any doubt about it. The president's got to do something. We've got to show our resolve. We know where these targets are inside of Syria. I think we've got to go in, and we just can't talk about destroying and degrading and destroying ISIS. I think we've got to show we're ready to do it. I'd do 2 things right now. I mean, if I were advising the president, it's my advice, 2 things right now. Number 1, say, we're revoking the passport of any American who went over there to help these guys. If they think they're going to come back to the United States, wrong. You like it so much over there? Stay there and watch out for our drones because they're overhead. And number 2, revoke the passports, number 1. Number 2, I'd say airstrikes against ISIS positions inside of Syria are already underway, and they're not going to stop until they are done. Overdone. No chance of regrouping. Just totally wipe out this guy. You know, there can't be that many of them. There are probably 10,000, maybe, you know. There are not that many of them. I mean, we are the strongest country on the planet. You know, we cannot be humiliated and intimidated like this by this gang of terrorists who are more dangerous, everybody has said, a greater threat to humanity than we've ever seen before from any group, including Al-Qaeda. What are we waiting for?
And I saw one person on Twitter this morning saying, you know, we can't go to war over the death of a couple of journalists. And that's not the issue. The issue is that this is going to keep happening, and this is going to keep going, and there will be more lives lost if we don't do something.
So, your calls. What should we do in response to this second execution video? 866-55 is press is a toll-free number. Maybe you think we ought to do nothing. Just condemn it, and everybody will agree with us, and then we move on. I don't think so. Let's go. Let's talk about it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
ISIS releases a second video of a second American journalist being beheaded, warning the United States that more Americans or more journalists from other countries will be beheaded until we stop airstrikes against them inside of Iraq. What should we do about it in response? 866-55-PRESS. By the way, I just want to point out, yesterday, the Pentagon did announce that we did, and I'm glad they did, a terrorist strike against the Al-Shabaab network in Somalia, the whole purpose of which was to kill the leader of Al-Shabaab. We're not sure whether we were successful or not. The question does loom out there: if we could launch airstrikes against the leader of Al-Shabaab, why aren't we on airstrikes against the leader of ISIS?
We have a quick comment from BP Show on Twitter. That's where we're tweeting, at BP Show. Lots of folks weighing in there, but Nancy says, Bill, you're a warmongering idiot. Obviously, you did not hear the POTUS this morning. He was very clear what he is arranging, not reacting.
I heard the POTUS this morning. I watched the news conference. He took no action.
I'm not sure
he
that
took no action.
I'm not sure I've ever heard anybody call you a warmongering idiot before.
Douglas in Oakland, California. Hello, Douglas. Quickly.
Bill, you're being hyped up over this war. The only people that are pushing this are the people in the media and also the military. I served in Fallujah twice, and to hear you we guys, hey, white man, we, this is lunacy. This is crazy behavior, and this is all you're doing is contributing to the decline of actually all the empires. You can't fight all these wars. You can't be in Estonia. You can't be in Africa. It's impossible to be.
Well, I didn't say we ought to go to war in Estonia. I'm just saying we should not let these guys get away with this. We have to respond.
This
more calls
is the
coming
Bill
up.
Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot. I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
All right, 34 minutes after the hour, we're talking about the fact ISIS releasing their second video, and the question is what of a beheading of an American journalist. The question is, what should the United States do about it? Yeah, thank you for calling me a warmongering idiot. Fine, that's what you think. I'm not going to try to get too defensive about it, but I want to make it clear. My point is we have to do something. We can't just do nothing. We can't just say, oh, we're sorry. You know, our thoughts and prayers are with the family. I mean, these people are for real. They mean business, and we've seen what they are. You know, that they've taken over these villages, and they've told the women, fine, you're now our concubines, and your bodies belong to us. They tell the men, you either convert or we're going to shoot you on the spot, which they did. They captured 200 Syrian journalists. They marched them out to the desert, sent a video out of that where they just lined them up and killed every one of them, shot them in the back or shot them in the head from the back. They've beheaded 2 American journalists now. This one group, Yazidis, they didn't like the fact that they were not Muslim. They rounded them all up, chased them out of the villages up to Mount Sinjab, left them without food or water. I mean, these are barbarians that we're dealing with, and they're going to continue to do this until we stop. The president says his mission is to degrade and destroy ISIS. You don't destroy ISIS with words only. Isn't that, I mean, yeah, call me a warmonger, but to me, that's just the truth. I don't know how you can debate that. And I'm not suggesting that we start another war in Iraq, or we send ground troops into Iraq or ground troops into Syria. But ISIS is in two places. They're in Iraq and they're in Syria. And most of them are in Syria, and most of their operations, we know that, are in Syria. And so if we're doing airstrikes against them in Iraq, why should we not follow through and do airstrikes against them in Syria? I think we have to. I think we will. And I think we ought to do it today. We should have done it yesterday with the release of this video. Peter.
We are on Twitter at BP Show.
That's all this warmongering idiot has to say about it.
that was very good.
I think it's pretty restrained.
Yeah, right. Well, remember, if you want to join in the conversation, at BP Show on Twitter is where you can find us, at BP Show.
And the longer we wait, the harder it's going to be to do.
Rhonda weighs in, says Congress needs to come back and authorize President Obama to enter Syria. We will get those SOBs. They have no value for life. We will teach them. We just have to wait.
Yeah. The problem, you know, I generally agree with that. The problem with waiting for this Congress to do anything.
Exactly. Another comment. Keep in mind
because if Obama wants it, they won't do it. Doesn't matter how bad they are. If Obama wants it, they won't do it.
Another comment. Keep in mind that Obama plays the long game. We need a coalition of nations to help us cut off money supply and stand up to ISIS.
How long are we going to wait for that?
Right.
Jesse is in Miami, Florida. Hi, Jesse.
Hi, Bill. Sad day here in Miami. God bless that reporter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sad day for all of us.
Yeah.
So what do we do about it, Jesse?
What we do about it, if that was me, I say, hey, why are you going to cut off my head? Well, let's get you a job. Yeah, I need a job. That's why I'm here. But do you think your religion could get you a job? I would think this guy would reply, yeah. You say, would your capitalism get you a job? You here and I'm getting ready to cut off your head. Who's right? So I say, basically, if we want to stop these horrors, give that English guy a job and give this guy a job here in Miami, so you don't have to anybody be in a situation like that. So,
well, I don't have any desire to give that English guy a job. I think that English guy he could have a job if he stayed in England. And said he decided to go and join the militants, and I think he deserves to be treated the same way if you will, the native ISIS fighters should be treated. And by the way, same goes with the Americans who are over there. I take their passport away and say, fine. You know what? They're traitors. If they leave the United States of America and they join a foreign force which is fighting against the United States of America, why should they have an American passport any longer? Again, to me, this is not rocket science.
Yeah.
They have chosen to turn their back on the United States and to declare war against the United States. Fine. Take their passport away. Don't let them back in the country. Peter's in Burlington, Vermont. Hi, Peter.
Good morning, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Big fan. Happy to speak to you. I just wanted to share the sentiment that, you know, without engaging in any sort of name-calling, I do have a concern that, you know, when the U.S. goes to the Middle East, it doesn't usually work out that well for the United States. It doesn't advance American interests.
We have learned that. I will grant you that point for sure.
So the concern is, I agree, these videos are horrible and brutal, and they provoke a visceral reaction, but what happens to those reporters isn't any worse than what happens to women in those countries on a daily basis.
True, Peter. True.
So,
all the more reason, I think, to go after these guys.
Well, I guess we agree in principle, but I don't know that we agree that going after them is the right result. I mean, I guess I'm just another war-weary American who recognizes when the U.S. launches airstrikes, you know, civilians get killed. It doesn't necessarily advance American interests, and the same with boots on the ground, and the same with going after these people. I agree that ISIS is horrible, but would ISIS even exist in the Middle East if the U.S. hadn't been mucking around over there for 60 years?
Maybe not. And, you know, it may be that they wouldn't be as strong, certainly, as they are if we had moved earlier in Syria and not let them, you know, become such a become such a force. I'm not saying it's an easy decision, Peter, and listen, I'm sure you and I 99% of the time would agree, but I think at some point, things get so bad and so horrific, so out of control that we have to do something, and I think we're at that point. I think we're at that point with ISIS. There's one other reality here too, and you got to admit this. As long as we do nothing, they're going to continue. They will see our inaction as a green light. Now, so we can condemn them till the day is long, but they'll continue to do what they're doing. They'll continue these tactics because that's who they are, and they want to get Americans outraged. Yeah, well, let's not just get outraged. Let's freaking do something.
And I think you spelled it out very well at the beginning of this segment when we talked about it's not just about the beheading of journalists. It's so much more than that. It's all the other stuff combined.
Yeah,
And imagine giving that a green light. The rapings, the killings, the brutality, the beheadings.
We talk about Sharia law. This is it. They have created a caliphate. They have. They've created a new state in the Middle East. We don't recognize it, called the Islamic State, where Sharia law, where they will behead somebody or chop their hand or their arm off for stealing a slice of pizza. I mean, this is as bad as it gets, and I think we look like wimps if we just say there's nothing we can do. Joey out in Chicago. Hey, Joey.
Hey, Americans, let's let ISIS just rape all the women and chop everyone's head off. What's wrong with you damn Americans? I am sick of President Urkel. I need President Shaft back. I am sick of this president. He sits on his hands and takes too long. What's he been doing for the past year about ISIS? They've been in Syria for a year. We are the strongest nation in the world. We have the best military in the world, and we cannot be embarrassed by a group of thugs. Let's get in there and do something about this, damn it. And Americans, you better stand up for Americans. I can't believe what I'm hearing here today. Let's go USA. We can do this.
All right, Joey. All right, Joey's going to lead the fight. Joey's going to lead the charge. Yeah. No, I mean, look, Peter used this phrase up in Burlington, Vermont. War-weary Americans. I think we are all war-weary Americans. Thank you, George Bush. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And I can go back and say we wouldn't be in this mess today if it weren't for a large part, we would not be in this mess today if we had not invaded Iraq. I think we'd be better off with Saddam Hussein in charge of Iraq today than we are where we are today. But we can't turn the clock back. The fact is, it happened. He did it. We're in this mess that we are today. We've got to get out of it. I think we've got to do something. We have to show our might, and we have to, get the support of as many nations as we can. But again, look, we went after Osama bin Laden and we got him, right? We went after, in Somalia yesterday, the head of this other terrorist group, Al-Shabaab, right? We can do this. We can do it, and we ought to do it. David Jackson next from the White House, USA Today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the hour, David Jackson, back from vacation, on the job yesterday at the White House. Hello, David.
Hello, Bill.
So, pretty stunning yesterday, I thought, at the briefing when Zeke Miller from Time Magazine basically informed us all that the second video had been released. I don't know about you, David. I expected the president to pop into the briefing room at any minute.
Well, you know, you got to remember, I heard about it literally as Josh was walking to the podium, and then shortly thereafter I got the email from this group that monitors these videos. So I knew it was going on, and I knew Josh did not know. So I think the White House was equally stunned. I mean, this came out of the blue. The timing couldn't have been worse from a standpoint. Right. And at that point, they hadn't authenticated the video, and I think. You know, the president likes to mind his P's and Q's. They wanted to make sure it was, in fact, Sotloff on that video, and that was something they weren't able to do until early this morning, about 4 a.m. So I guess he decided and they decided just to hold off on an official presidential statement until the tape was authenticated.
Wouldn't you think that this would maybe quicken the president's decision about airstrikes inside of Syria, or no?
I think it will quicken it, but I don't think it's going to be anything imminent. I mean, I think it's a tricky deal from a lot of different perspectives to go into Syria. It's a sovereign country. It's a sovereign country whose leader we've demanded be deposed, basically. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of concern, certainly on the part of the president and on some of his aides, about if we start bombing in Syria, we're going to get tangled up in their civil war.
Tangled up more than we have been in the civil war.
I mean, we would be directly involved, though, if we go after ISIS in Syria. So there's a lot of different things. And then, in a sense, it puts us on the side of Assad in Syria, too. Does. Something they have to be concerned about.
Right, which they've denied, but I don't think there's any other way you can read it. Because if we're helping destroy his enemy, we are, in fact, indirectly helping him.
And also, job number one is Iraq, to try to basically throw them out of Iraq if we can. I think that would be the preference for the administration, is to get them out of Iraq first and then try to figure out how to deal with Syria.
So the other issue that came up was the immigration thing. Yes, and you know, I don't know how you read it, David, but I mean, Josh was denying that any decision has been made to delay the president's executive action on immigration till beyond the elections.
Right.
Do you think he made his case?
That's a good question. I went afterward and talked to several people about that. I think they are trying to play a little stall ball, if you will, to use a basketball term. I think they wouldn't mind waiting until after the election. But, there's some people in the White House that feel like maybe he might do something in October, before the election, and to try to address the issue and basically have the voters decide how they want to handle the issue as well. But if I had to bet, I'd have to say we won't have any decisions, any big time immigration plans until after November 4th.
I guess the problem is, right, that in the Rose Garden last spring, the president said by the end of summer, we're going to take action. Well, the end of summer keeps getting pushed farther and farther back.
Technically, the end of summer, September 22nd. Now they're saying that's the deadline just for the recommendations.
Yeah,
from the Attorney General and from the Department of Homeland Security. They won't say when the president might act on those recommendations. I think too, but Bill, if he goes for this real massive work permit program for people who are already here illegally, I mean, there's a lot of legal ramifications for that, and there's a lot of details in terms of who might qualify for something like that. So it's not something they could do overnight in the event. So that's another thing that's driving this.
And clearly, there are some Democrats who would rather not have that whole thing announced before the midterms.
No, and clearly they're in the South too, where they have the most vulnerable Senate race. And I think that's what it's all about: is maintaining Democratic control of the Senate. And well, who knows what will determine when or what he might do on immigration, but the elections are certainly a part of it, and they're very concerned about losing control of the Senate. And I think there are 4 southern seats that are held by Democrats now that are in trouble, and this would definitely affect that.
Now the president has one more opportunity this week. In fact, he's already there, I guess, or leaving soon for Wales at the NATO summit to try to get some concerted EU action and help in Ukraine.
Right.
Prospects of success?
I think they're pretty good, actually. And of course, that's all up in the air now too, because of the supposed ceasefire between the Russians and Ukraine. Right. But I'm hearing that might not be a done deal. There's all kind of static coming out of the region in terms of what the details of the ceasefire are. So I think we're all kind of waiting to see how this thing plays out. In fact, someone just told me that the president of Ukraine just changed the language on his website about what the ceasefire involves. So I think everybody's waiting to see how that plays out first. But I think the prospects are pretty good. I think the Europeans are almost as fed up with Putin as the United States are. And even though there's concern about Russian energy supplies to their country, I think they're willing to try to continue putting the squeeze on Russia to try to get Putin to stand down in Ukraine.
Yeah, because Putin last weekend said clearly his aim is a whole independent state, basically.
Well, there's no doubt he wants a friendly government in Ukraine, and what he's willing to do to get that, some people urge him to just wait for the next elections, but he may not want to wait that long. And
I got to tell you, David, when you look at this summer in terms of foreign policy, boy, it's not been a walk in the park for sure.
One thing after another. There's a lot of ornery people, right? We haven't. Even in these foreign policy discussions, we don't even talk about China, and China's arguing with 3 of its major neighbors, and Japan, Vietnam, and then Hong Kong. Of course, neighbors, but there's also the prospect of a civil war with Hong Kong. So we don't even get to that. That's how dangerous the world is right now. There are all kind of trouble spots.
Yeah, we don't even we would be talking about that, except there's so much going on in the Middle East.
Right, and Susan Rice, the National Security Advisor, is going to China.
Right.
I think September 7th. I think she leaves. So that's another major trouble spot for the world.
All right. Well, that's why we're glad you're back on the job, David.
Oh God, I know. It was so idyllic there in Italy last week. I didn't have to think about this stuff until someone called me about the president's comment about no strategy to explain what he really meant.
They're still trying to explain that. He was trying to do it this morning too. All right, David. Catch up with you later. Thanks so much. All right, David Jackson, USA Today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves, Would you like it back? What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like it back?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
All right, here we go. Peter, quick comment?
Just a reminder that you can always comment on the show on Twitter at BP Show, at BP Show. One theme that we're seeing from a lot of people, one person says, Bill, you should never, ever question what President Obama has to say. If he says he has a plan, he has one.
You know, every day when I walk in the White House, I see people in front of the White House protesting all different policies. If they can do it, I can do it.
This
God bless America.
is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
My fellow Americans, what do you say? Hello, hello, hello. This Wednesday, September 3rd. Good to see you. Thanks for joining in. It's the Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and looking at you on Free Speech TV. First of all, we've got a satellite dish. You know where to find us on DirecTV and the Dish Network. And there we are worldwide on our video stream. TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. The entire civilized world this morning shocked and saddened by that video released yesterday by ISIS, the beheading of American journalist Steve Sotloff, exactly 2 weeks to the day after they released the video of the execution of American photojournalist James Foley. President Obama had a news conference in Estonia early this morning, condemning the killing, of course, and saying the mission of the United States continues to be to degrade and destroy ISIS. And to that end, we are working to build a new Iraqi government and to put together a regional coalition, the president said, of forces that can go after ISIS and destroy them, both in the air and on the ground. No decision yet on airstrikes against ISIS targets in Syria, although in the light of yesterday's video, many Democrats and Republicans called on the president to launch those strikes immediately. The FBI, meanwhile, looking into the person or persons responsible for hacking into the cloud and releasing those nude photos of Jennifer Lawrence and other celebrities. And the White House says they may, in fact, delay any executive action on immigration until after the midterm elections. Give us a call about any of the above at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us on this Wednesday edition of the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
The video has been confirmed. It is the second American journalist beheaded by the barbarians of ISIS. Steve Sotloff, President Obama, vowing this morning that our mission is still to degrade and to destroy ISIS. Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday, September 3rd. Here we go. Rolling along with the Bill Press Show from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., keeping our eye on what's going on here in the nation's capital, around the country, around the globe, particularly with the president in Estonia, and a big news conference this morning, just about an hour and a half ago. We'll bring it all to you and take your calls on what it all means to you. 866-55-PRESS, again, is the toll-free number. Good to be with you on your local progressive talk radio station. Good to be with you on Free Speech TV and worldwide on TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. And remember, if you're not lucky enough to have a good progressive talk station where you live, you can always listen in on the TuneIn app. It's free. Download it, TuneIn app, or go to iHeartRadio, which will connect you to one of our great local affiliates, and you can follow the entire show there. We've got the team in place this morning, Peter Rockburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, hello.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey. Good
with
morning.
Alicia Cruz, ready to take your calls. 866-55-PRESS, again, the toll-free number. Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, on the job, keeping us looking good on Free Speech TV and on Talker TV. And here in studio with us, keeping their eye on the other side, on the conservative media, so we don't have to watch or listen to them. Media Matters, Jeremy Holden is their research director. Good to have you back, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me back.
Everything good in the world of media?
Not doing as good as we can.
No?
Yeah, well, yeah. If everything was good in the media, what would I have to do?
Exactly. Right. Keep in business.
Well, we are glad you're there. One big media story, of course, getting a lot of attention, one that we want to talk to you about, is this hacking of all these celebrity photos. It turns out that it may not be so hard to get that information as we thought. The head of CrowdStrike Services, a man by the name of Sean Henry, pointed this out yesterday.
You know somebody's account name and you guess their password. You try to use some of the common names or tricks that people use when they develop passwords. And by guessing that password, you'll get access to that account.
These people, I guess that's all they do, right? They sit there and they say, well, let's try this, let's try this. And then the celebrities put out so much information, because they're always on Twitter, and talking this and put out a lot of information about themselves that people kind of glean from that what their password might be. Or
it's terrifying.
It is. It is.
No, it's horrifying.
Is there anything such thing as privacy left?
So I don't know. I always get annoyed when I get those alerts that pop up, right? It's time to change your password. I want to think about changing. I'm going to change all my passwords. It just is. I'm certainly no celebrity by any stretch of the imagination, but it does make you stop and think about this issue of privacy and security.
We've talked about this a couple times with the whole password thing. Yeah. I just don't have the self-control to make myself change my passwords and then remember all of them, right? But this is a reminder that people are out there and will come after your stuff. And, we've seen people who come into the studio who have, a piece of tape over their camera on their computer because they're afraid that someone might hack into their computer and look at it. And, I don't have the whole photo stream set up on my phone so that if I take a picture, it doesn't go to all my devices because there are some privacy concerns. And this just drives the point home that it's not that hard to get a hold of information that you don't want public.
Well,
if someone wants to get it, they can get it.
They're also suggesting that maybe now you need two passwords. You put one password to one level and then another password to get into the next level, which means you have twice as many passwords to forget.
Yeah,
exactly.
And you can't write either of them down because someone might find it. So
Forget it, man.
Help.
I'm just not going to do that.
Can we go back to dial phones?
I realize it's the smart thing to do. I just
used
will
to
not
be
do
so
that.
simple.
The thing is, the cord would get all tangled up. You'd fidget with it, and it turned upside down and inside out.
And then somebody would be listening in on the party line.
Yeah.
So, God, I'm telling you. It doesn't get any better. 11 minutes after the hour now. So Jeremy's here with us for the first half hour. Joe Cirincione is going to straighten out all the foreign policy problems of the world in the next half hour. And then in the next hour, Christina Bellantoni from Roll Call here with the 10 most vulnerable U.S. senators this year. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Good news if you want to eat at a McDonald's in Sweden and you don't have any cash. The McDonald's in Sweden, according to Fast Company, they will now accept empty beer and soda cans as payment. So they now have a sign that says
you have to have a pile of them.
I'm glad you brought this up. For 10 cans, only 10 cans, which is a pretty good weekend, a customer could get a free hamburger or a free cheeseburger. If you have 40 cans, you get a Big Mac or La Big Mac. You know, the system over there. So, that's all it takes. 10 empty cans of beer or soda, and you could get a free cheeseburger at McDonald's in Sweden.
Such good news. Although I have news for you. If I travel all the way to Sweden, I don't go there to eat in a McDonald's.
Don't eat at McDonald's. Yeah, exactly. A new survey by the company Skift that takes a look at travel habits reports that 62.4% of Americans did not travel at all last year. They did take vacation time. They took their allotted amount of vacation time, but they never actually traveled anywhere. They stayed at home for a staycation. So the staycation still alive and well, apparently. One group that didn't hold up were people making more than $150,000. They actually went somewhere.
64%?
62.4%. So 62%. Didn't travel at all last year. They stayed at home and never left.
A staycation is not a vacation. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Although, is anything a vacation in the era of smartphones? I mean, you sit there and scroll through email.
Right. It's just time off.
Yeah,
get out of town. Take the Greyhound bus.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And more bad news for Wes Welker of the Denver Broncos. Last week, we reported that he had sustained his third concussion in 11 months. Well, yesterday, we found out that he has tested positive for amphetamines, and he will have to sit out the first 4 games of the NFL season. It looks like, according to some sources, he took Molly, an amphetamine, at the Kentucky Derby. Which is interesting because there were videos that surfaced of him at the Kentucky Derby just handing out $100 bills to people. And some people suspected that he was acting a little kooky. So he took a drug test, tested positive for amphetamine. So he's out for the first 4 games, Wes Welker of the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, boy. NFL is,
I wouldn't be surprised if someone planted the Molly on him to keep him from getting another concussion, frankly.
So much bad publicity.
But the season hasn't even started yet, and you've got all this bad publicity.
Right. All right, Peter, thank you. Let's see, Jeremy, on the media front, well, I want to start with the new anchor for ABC News, David Muir. I watched last night. He did a pretty good job. Of course, he's been an anchor on the weekends for at least a year, and filled in before that. But this is a big gamble on the part of ABC.
Yeah, well, and I think it's an important story, right? Because we focus, so it's very easy to focus heavily on cable news, on talk radio. Certainly, that's where we spend a lot of our time at Media Matters. You have to keep in mind that large numbers of Americans still get their news from those nightly news broadcasts. So who's bringing that news and that person's credibility is an important thing. So certainly, seeing how David Muir moves into that role, how he occupies that seat is going to be an important data point to watch.
Right, 40 years old. ABC is counting on his getting a younger demographic to watch. I saw in the New York Times yesterday that the audience for the nightly news is only 2/3 of what it used to be in its heyday. But that's still, I believe, more people than watch all the cable news, all the cable channels together every night.
Yeah, that's right. And I think you think about
it's a
how
lot of people.
Yeah, you think about how television news has changed since the day when there were 3 channels, right? And so now it's not surprising to see that the number of people tuning into any one channel, particularly say a television, broadcast news, is down from its highs. But you're right, it's still much larger than cable news. It's a very massive audience, and so the seat that he is filling is a very important one, and it warrants attention to see again how he holds that chair, how he presents the news to that audience.
You at Media Matters have been spending there's several stories lately on George Will. Turns out George Will we know he's a contributor now to Fox News. Is he also a consultant to the Coke Industries?
Yeah, it's starting to look like it. So Politico reported over the weekend about George Will's attendance at an American for Prosperity VIP dinner, seen as something of a launching pad at this point for Republicans who are going to make a run for the White House in 2016. George Will got a standing ovation, delivered comments there. We went back and looked, and over the last several months, so George Will has spent a lot of column space defending Coke-backed issues, defending Republicans running for Senate that are recipients of Coke money, Coke largesse, AFP-backed candidates. So I think that's where people start to see, like, this stinks a little bit, right? I mean, George Will, deep in Coke land, using his Washington Post and syndicated columns to kind of back Coke-backed candidates and issues.
Any evidence that he's getting paid to do so?
None, and I think that's the important question that I think journalists need to be asking. To what extent does this relationship involve any types of financial contributions? Like, what is the depth? How deep does this relationship go? That's an open question that we're trying to get answers to.
I am not accusing him of this, but I do just want to point out that it's not unheard of that people are given money to take a position, take one side or the other in writing their columns. We talked about this, it was maybe, 5 or 6 years ago, Peter, that someone invited me to lunch and offered me $15,000 to write a column on one side of a particular issue. And it happened to be the side of the issue I supported anyway, but I wouldn't think of taking the money, and I didn't write a column on that issue for that reason, because I was afraid that they would assume, right, or somebody would assume I got paid for it.
Yeah. Sure. So and look, we still don't know what financial arrangement exists between AFP and Will for this event, and even short of any type of quid pro quo, it just looks bad, right? The optics of this, that George Will spends months promoting Coke-backed candidates and then shows up for a VIP dinner and wines and dines with Coke-backed candidates.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can also say that in this environment, in this city, almost nobody gives a speech in front of a group like that without getting a great, big, fat speaker's fee.
Yeah, he got paid.
Yeah.
He got paid.
I can tell you just about for that speech, he got paid. Right. So with all this trouble in the Middle East, all of us are looking for guests who can talk about it and shed some light on what we ought to do over there. And there's not that many people who are really experts in that region, but Sean Hannity found one last night. And so he reached out. Who would you reach out to, you would think, Peter? Booker, you and Elisa book the show every day.
Yeah, I'd get a Middle Eastern expert or someone, a war general or someone like that who might have some experience.
Would you go to maybe Duck Dynasty?
No, I don't think I would go to Duck Dynasty. No.
Well, Sean Hannity did it last night, and here he is.
In this case, you either have to convert them, which I think would be next to impossible. I'm not giving up on them, but I'm just saying either convert them or kill them, one or the other.
Why would you put that guy on the air?
I don't know.
What's his name?
Phil Robertson.
Phil Robertson.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
And so he got into some hot water. Just a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
For comments equating homosexuality and bestiality. So, clearly somebody Sean Hannity wants to book on the show. And again, to talk about ISIS, and think about the commentary there, right? You either have to convert them or kill them.
Well, but this is what ISIS does.
That is no different than what ISIS is saying. You're right.
It's exactly what ISIS does. And that's what they've told the Yazidis and others over there. And they've done it. They've done it.
And so the flip side of that then is also this insinuation, this really nasty insinuation that all Muslims are just like ISIS, that somehow ISIS represents the entire Muslim world. So you have both of those things going on there. Not quite sure what Sean Hannity was thinking, but it'll be interesting to see whether this brings any more heat to the Duck Dynasty team that finally had the last controversy surrounding Phil Robertson's comments behind him. Is this going to bring more heat?
Well, I know it sounds like a totally naive and stupid question, but is there no quality control at Fox over, putting this bozo on the air? I mean, wouldn't at some point Roger Ailes or somebody say he doesn't deserve to be on our air?
I have yet to see any quality control or standards over at Fox on the booking. I think one person who's breathing easy today might be KT McFarland. She's a national security analyst over at Fox. And now that everybody's going to be talking about what Phil Robertson said last night, we may forget that KT McFarland yesterday, her initial analysis of the beheading that we learned about yesterday was to blame President Obama. So I think she might be breathing easier today because people might forget the outrageous thing she said and instead talk about the Duck Dynasty guy. But you see, again, no quality control, no standards, no accountability over at Fox.
They watch Fox so we don't have to. Media Matters, and then they catch them in all their lies and tell the truth. Jeremy Holden's our research director. 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back. Your questions, your comments, now's the time.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful?
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university. And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
27 minutes after the hour, Jeremy Holden here from Media Matters for AmericanMediaMatters.org. I was thinking, you mentioned J.T. McFarland's going to breathe a little easier this. So will probably the commentators on The Five. They're usually the ones that get in trouble for saying outrageous things, right?
Or they might actually...
But Duck Dynasty, the guy kind of eclipses anything that they might say.
Yeah, they actually might be a little bit jealous of the attention. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody on Outnumbered or The Five really ramps it up today to try and get the spotlight back. Like Andrea Tantaros is like, oh, that was brilliant, man. I bet I can do better than that.
Better. Yeah. Rush Limbaugh, some notes, little comments out this week. He may be losing a little bit of his clout.
Yeah, the slow trickle continues, right? I mean, it was just a month ago. Pittsburgh joined a growing number of cities, kind of pushing Rush Limbaugh to a smaller band, a lower-rated radio station. And this has been something that has been going on for some time. Rush Limbaugh's audience, increasingly on the fringes of society. Rush Limbaugh's been bad for business for some time, and we continue to see how that plays out in the talk radio landscape. He built that industry, that conservative talk radio industry, and he's increasingly seen as a face of the demise.
Oh, yeah. Well, I would give Media Matters a lot of credit for that demise as well. Good job, and thanks for coming in this morning again, Jeremy.
Always a pleasure.
Keep it up. MediaMatters.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use, which is a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 33 minutes after the hour now. It is The Bill Press Show on a Wednesday, September 3rd, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees, the good men and women of the AFGE under President J. David Cox. Proud to work for America every day and all the great different federal agencies. And for more information, you can check out their website at afge.org. We thank them for their support and grateful for the good work that they do every day for this country. President Obama has arrived in Estonia. He is now meeting with the Prime Minister of Estonia. Earlier, he gave a news conference with the President of Estonia, where he did talk about the video released yesterday by ISIS of the beheading of a second American journalist, Steve Sotloff. The President confirming that, in fact, confirming the authenticity of the video.
Overnight, our government determined that tragically Stephen was taken from us in a horrific act of violence.
And the President expressing his condolences and the condolences on behalf of all the American people to the family of Stephen Sotloff, his mother making a plea last week on video to ISIS to spare her son's life and not hold him responsible for policies that he had nothing to do with. That plea ignored, of course, by ISIS because they don't have any respect for human life, period. President Obama assuring us this morning and warning those responsible for this act that we will not forget it and they won't get away with it.
Those who make the mistake of harming Americans will learn that we will not forget and that our reach is long and that justice will be served. And the President also pointing out that if they think
that we are going to change our tactics or change our decisions based on these kinds of barbaric actions, then the president is saying they're wrong. This will just double our resolve.
Like people around the world, Americans are repulsed by their barbarism. We will not be intimidated. Their horrific acts only unite us as a country and stiffen our resolve to take the fight against these terrorists.
But the president making no statement about airstrikes against ISIS positions inside of Syria, which are certainly being considered, but nothing on that front as yet. What should we do about it? What can we do about it? What kind of allies would we have if we decide to go against ISIS? It is a very serious situation, and we look for some insights. Who else would we turn to but Joe Cirincione? Joe, how are you? Nice to see you. Thank you for coming in again.
Thank you for having me.
You have had, I don't want to hold you personally responsible, but I've got to say, on the foreign policy front, this summer, man, it's been a tough summer.
I apologize. I'm sorry. This wasn't the plan. It was supposed to go a lot more smoothly than this.
All right. Now, I want to take a little detour here because another breaking news this morning is that about 3 hours ago, the president of Ukraine announced a ceasefire with Russia in Ukraine. Just during this break, waiting for you to get here off the metro, I look at my iPhone and New York Times reports that the Ukrainian president has canceled, rescinded his statement about this. So what's going on?
Do we
know?
He went too far. He spoke initially about a lasting ceasefire, which would have been great news. But now he talks about how we have an understanding of what would be necessary for a ceasefire. So he got a little ahead of himself.
Right.
And Putin is playing him masterfully, I would say, at this point, and is part of the upper hand that Putin retains in this crisis. What we want is stability and end to hostilities. What Putin wants is instability. Keep us guessing, uncertainty. It's easier to do the latter.
And he wants to carve out the eastern part of Ukraine and make that an independent state, which is basically part of Russia almost.
A maximum goal, yes, including a land bridge to Crimea. Minimum goal is to assure that Ukraine has an autonomous nation that guarantees the autonomy of eastern Ukraine. That would mean eastern Ukraine would have a veto over any Ukraine plans to join NATO.
Can you explain to me why the White House will not call what's going on an invasion of Ukraine?
No. They've
moved troops in, they've moved tanks in, they've seized land. That's an invasion,
At
isn't
least
it?
1,000 Russian forces, armored columns, besieging cities, en route to besiege more. I believe it's part of the strategy of not to escalate the crisis into a state we can't control it. And we can't control it. So all the responses so far have been measured response, in part because that's as far as our European allies are willing to go. And that's what the president is discussing in Europe.
I'm going to say, so that is on the agenda, the number one item on the agenda in NATO, in Wales, when the president, I think later today we'll get there. And
he's in Estonia now, making a demonstration of U.S. commitment. So going to a Baltic state, presidents don't go there very often. I don't remember when the last time a president was in a Baltic state. But going to the front lines. I mean, he's basically on the border with Russia, saying we're with you.
We've got your back.
Yes.
Right.
Article 5 of the NATO Charter, an attack on one is attack on all, is firm. Don't worry. We're there to defend you.
So then at this NATO conference, are we likely to see some little more backbone on the part of Europe?
Yes, but not as much as people would like. So there's tremendous expectations have been built up for this NATO summit. It's not going to be that. Most historic summits since 2002, when NATO expanded to 7 nations, world watershed moment. Relax. This is NATO. It doesn't move very quickly. It has lots of divisions, lots of different points. But you're likely to see, one, the creation of a rapid deployment force, 4,000 troops ready to move in 8 hours to be able to respond to these new kinds of conflicts, things that are not an attack on a NATO nation, but do destabilize Europe. You're likely to... Go ahead. you're likely to see support for more sanctions. This is, really the kind of thing that in the long run will deter Putin, even though in the short run he gains the advantage. You'll see support for that. You're also likely to see movement on ISIS, which is probably not going to become a NATO mission, but you'll see individual nations pledging support to combat ISIS.
Joe Cirincione with us from the Ploughshares Fund. Now, Joe, I was at the White House briefing yesterday when just about 5 minutes into the briefing, Zeke Miller from Time Magazine notified Josh Earnest that there was no way Josh would know this, that this video had just been released by ISIS, purportedly showing the beheading of a second American journalist, Stephen Sotloff. And the briefing went on for about another hour. I expected at any moment the door to open and the President of the United States to walk in, condemn what had happened, and say, okay, they want a response, here's my response. We know where they are. We're going after them inside of Syria, airstrikes against Syria. He didn't do it. He left without saying anything. This morning, the President did condemn, of course. They confirmed the video, condemned it, and said our mission is still to degrade and destroy ISIS. Why didn't he react sooner and stronger?
Yeah, this is clearly Obama's M.O. He's a very cautious man. He wants to have all the facts. He wants to have all the information. He wants to assemble the pieces before he announces a new direction. It's got him in a lot of trouble over the last month. People have been hammering him for not having a strategy.
Dianne Feinstein says too cautious.
A little too cautious. And I think she has a point. I think that's true. But overall, I got to tell you, I like his approach. I just wrote a column for Defense One, which will be coming out later this morning on this.
All right, you heard it here first on the Bill Press Show. Yes,
this is the National Journal site on defense, which picks up on some of the themes that Thomas Friedman's talking about in the New York Times today. And Obama has developed his strategy in large part to counter the Bush strategy,
which was shoot first, ask questions later.
And that's what his column is called.
Is that right?
Fire, ready, aim.
Yeah.
And he says Obama's putting it together, and you see it now. For weeks they've been having talks with the Sunni leaders in the Middle East that weren't public but are happening now. At this NATO summit, you're going to go rally individual countries to come to the support. Germany's already moved. Germany broke with a longstanding policy of not shipping arms to conflict zones and is announcing a large shipment of arms to Kurdish fighters who are defending Erbil, machine guns, anti-tank records, armored vehicles, the kinds of things they need. John Kerry, the Secretary of State, and Secretary of Defense Hagel are going with Obama to the summit and then fanning out to the Middle East to build a coalition of Sunni nations, because Obama understands that you can't defeat ISIS militarily with U.S. forces. There's got to be a coalition of the countries and the tribes in the region to eventually push back and dismember this ISIS.
But
Sunni
in the
radical group.
short term, we know ISIS has established this Islamic State, in effect, partly in Syria and partly in Iraq. And we're already bombing their positions in Iraq. Why not bomb their positions in Syria, too?
In part, it's in order to get the other countries to step up. It's easy for countries and leaders in the region to say, you do it. U.S., you come in. You're the superpower. You take care of it. And Obama's saying, look, we can't do this alone. There is no quick fix. 100 sorties are going to damage ISIS, but it's not going to eliminate it. It might inflame it. There's got to be the ground game, and we're not going to do the ground game. We have 1,000 forces, soldiers in Iraq now. This is getting real close to the residual force that we wanted to leave there that Iraq prohibited. You remember that we were talking about 3,000, 5,000? Well, we're up to 1,100 troops now. So this is a residual force. Here we are. But not in a combat role. The combat has to be done by the people whose country it is. That's what Obama's doing. He doesn't want to come in too quick, too fast.
And isn't the risk that ISIS will see this as a green light to continue doing what they're doing?
Well, yes, but you see, ISIS, the rapid expansion has been stopped. We don't know if this can hold or not.
Right.
But they were spreading
inside of Iraq. Yes.
Inside of Iraq, they were spreading. You've rolled them back. They didn't take Erbil. An Iraqi town was the first town to resist them successfully just this last week. Yes, they're doing killings in horrific numbers, not just American journalists, but hundreds of people in mass executions, Nazi style, So, but they're not spreading right now. There's been a containment here. Will we see bigger airstrikes? I think we will. Will we see airstrikes in Syria? I think we will. It's coming.
Yeah. And will Congress authorize airstrikes in Syria? There are more and more calls yesterday. When they come back, and President Obama, will he seek their authorization? So many aspects of this. It's complicated. It's not easy. Joe Cirincione helps us through it from the Ploughshares Fund. You want to weigh in with your question, your comment? Now's the time to do so at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune into Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
I can't.
11 minutes before the top of the hour in the next hour. We're going to talk about the hacking of those nude photos of Jennifer Lawrence and other actresses. Charlie Warzel from... Did I pronounce that correctly?
Charlie Warzel?
Warzel, okay,
Warzel,
thank you.
Yeah.
From BuzzFeed will be joining us, and then Christina Bellantoni from Roll Call. Right now we're trying to solve the nation's foreign policy issues and crises with Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund. And just before the break, Joe, we're talking about whether or not the president should have maybe acted more forcefully in response to this video. So here's my question to you. This came up at the briefing yesterday. Yesterday, the Pentagon announced that we had conducted airstrikes to take out the head of al-Shabaab in Somalia. So we did an anti-terrorist strike in Somalia. Why not? Why hesitate in Syria?
Two reasons. First, you got to remember how active this president has been in this area. I mean, look, we're in Somalia. We've been doing airstrikes and counterinsurgency operations there for years. We've been doing drone strikes in over 7 countries in the region. Remember, a couple of months ago, people were complaining about the drone strikes. We were doing too much.
Pakistan and on.
What a fickle country. So, no, now we're not doing enough. You know, so caution. 2, you got to get the pieces in place. So, do you want to take out the leader of ISIS? What happens next? Is that the blow that you want? You know, it's possible we could do that, as Zarqawi style. But then what? So this is what the president's saying. Put the whole thing together. What happens? He wants to know what happens after the bombs start falling. And we don't have that yet because we don't have the alliance yet. We don't have the commitment of the Sunni nations, some of the countries that have been funding ISIS all this time. Are we going to drop bombs on them and then Saudi Arabia is going to give them money to buy more bombs? How does this all work together? That's why I like the basic approach of this president. I'm frustrated too. He's a little too hesitant. He's a little too slow. But I prefer to err on this side than on the Bush side, which is go in guns blazing and we'll figure it out later.
And the president said last week in the briefing room, what's our strategy? He said, we don't have a strategy. Joe, we don't have a strategy? We've known about ISIS for a year or more.
If you read the full remarks, what he's saying is, I'm not going to announce the strategy until we put all the pieces together, and then I want to put the cart before the horse. The cart is the strategy. The horse is the alliance. So he says, we're putting together the alliance. I don't have a strategy yet. It was a fair thing to say in the context in this professorial style, but you're in Washington, man. People like Karen DeYoung are going to rip that out and put it down your throat, and that's what happened on the front page of the Washington Post.
The headline last week and the headline forever will be a picture of Barack Obama and the words, we have no strategy.
Yeah, and even the Daily News has taken him to task with a picture of the beheading of this journalist saying, do you have a strategy yet? That's that's the pressure he's under today.
But you're thinking overall he's still doing the right thing. You're just a little frustrated that maybe it's taking too long.
I'm also I don't want to be Uncle Sucker here. I don't want to all our allies keep whining, do more, do more. They've been whining that we should do more for 100 years since they convinced us to come into World War I. So this is a common refrain among our allies.
Sure.
Let's see what they're going to do. Let's see how they're going to step up. What role are they going to take? What burden are they going to bear? And then we'll have a comprehensive strategy.
All right, Joe. Now you've given us, a topsy-turvy roller coaster summer. Just sort of take things easy now for a while, will you, please? Just kind of lay off. By the way, as somebody pointed out this morning, there's hell going on in China too, with China's relations with its neighbors and all, and maybe civil war between China and Hong Kong. We're not even talking about all of that, right?
We haven't talked about North Korea for months, but those guys haven't gone away. They'll be back.
Exactly. All right, and you'll be back too. Joe Cirincione of Ploughshares on this. Ploughshares.org. PLOU. I always tell you, GHshares.org. Thank you, Joe. You're great.
How come I can't come and talk about nude photos? Okay.
Yeah, really. It's a lot easier.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in into Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV. Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new. If I could have an extra 5 years to live. You said 5, right? 5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much. I would get more hamsters. I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years. I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood. I want to go check out the moon sometime. I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna. I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed. If I had 5 more extra years to live, I would be the boss of all the chipmunks. Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
This is the Bill Press Show.
President Obama in Estonia. It's kind of hard with the time difference to keep up with the schedule over there. He, of course, has already arrived. He met with the president of Estonia. They held a joint news conference earlier today. He has met with the prime minister. Next on his agenda, he'll be meeting with the 3 presidents of the Baltic states, president of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And then he's giving a speech later this afternoon at about noon, our time, East Coast. He'll be leaving for Wales and the NATO summit in Wales. And we'll be right back with hour number 3.
This is the Bill Press Show.
West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's 2, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags and we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight, it's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
The White House confirms that video is indeed the video of the execution of American journalist Steve Sotloff. President Obama condemning that act, of course, this morning and vowing the mission of the United States to degrade and destroy ISIS. Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday, September 3rd. Good to see you today. Thank you for joining us and being part of the program as we boom out to you nationwide on your local Progressive Talk radio station and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, with our team press in place here this morning. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
Hello, with Alicia Cruz. She's there to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding keeping us looking good on that video stream. TawkrTV, of course. Lots going on we need to talk about, and lots you will want to weigh in about. Don't forget to do so, by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Or sending us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Everybody's asking the question about what to do in response to the ISIS video, the latest. And we all, talk radio hosts, talk show hosts, TV, radio talk show hosts, look for the best possible guests so we can get the most knowledgeable people who know the region, know the area, and have something something meaningful to offer in terms of strategy or commentary, right? Well, that raises the question, why the hell would Sean Hannity, on this very topic, serious topic, invite Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty? Now, there's a source. There's an expert. And Robertson came through last night in pure Duck Dynasty fashion.
In this case, you either have to convert them, which I think is would be next to impossible. I'm not giving up on them, but I'm just saying either convert them or kill them, one or the other.
Which, of course, is exactly what ISIS says and does.
Yeah, exactly.
So we congratulate Sean Hannity for discovering the American ISIS.
Yeah, the latest member of ISIS. There he is.
Yes, the American ISIS, Duck Dynasty. Good Lord, Fox News. Hey, we're going to talk about another big story in the news, the hacking of all those nude photographs of Hollywood celebrities. And Christina Bellantoni from Roll Call we'll talk about the hacking with Charlie Warzel from Buzzfeed. Christina Bellantoni here from Roll Call on the most vulnerable members of the House and Senate in the midterm elections. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Congratulations, Los Angeles. You now have your very first Dunkin' Donuts. It opened up this week. LA was without Dunkin' Donuts all this time.
Really?
Right? You'd think they would have had one, but they didn't. They opened one up, and lines wrapped around the block. Even yesterday, the second day that it was open, Lines went around the corner.
Where is it? Do you know?
I don't know. Los Angeles. I'll give
Los Angeles is pretty big.
I know. Obviously, I know Los Angeles is big. I don't know the address. I
know it so well. I'm just wondering. I'm going to picture it where it is.
I promise you, I will find out the address and I'll run it by you before the end of the show, sir.
Is that the first Dunkin' Donuts on the West Coast?
I don't think it's the
I've never seen a Dunkin' Donuts on the West Coast.
But I know it's the first one in Los Angeles. No, wait, what are you guys asking me all this stuff about Dunkin'? I don't know. We're just talking about Los Angeles.
All right. Okay.
That's all I got for you. I didn't dig too deep on this story. Good grief. Now we know why they call them popcorn movies. A new study in the Journal of the American Medical Association says that when you're watching an action movie, these summer action movies, you eat more popcorn and drink more soda and eat more candy than other movies. The reason is because there are so many other distractions, you aren't actually paying attention to what you eat. So we've called them popcorn movies for a long time, so you just mindlessly sit there and before you know it, you've eaten a bucket of popcorn. So it's all about the distraction. If you have to watch a movie that you have to really pay attention to and follow the story,
you don't need as much popcorn.
Maybe you eat some carrots or something.
Unless you're really coordinated, and then you can still eat your popcorn.
Yeah, right.
Popcorn never tastes better than it does in the movie theater.
That's the only time I ever eat popcorn. It's in a movie theater.
It's so true,
weird, isn't it?
Yeah. And yesterday we reported that Michael Sam had been cut from the Rams and had not been picked up by any other team, but we spoke a little too soon. We found out yesterday that Michael Sam, the first professional football player that has come out as a gay man, flew into Dallas, Texas last night, and he's going to take a physical for the Dallas Cowboys today. And if he passes that physical, which everyone expects that he will be on the practice squad for the Dallas Cowboys. The reasoning behind this is because the Dallas Cowboys don't have to pool their money for merchandising sales with the NFL. They're the only team that doesn't have to do that. And one of the top-selling items, or several of the top-selling items on the NFL store are Michael Sam jerseys, Michael Sam T-shirts, Michael Sam merchandise. So the Dallas Cowboys see this as a business opportunity to make a lot of money off of it.
Good for them, and I hope they laugh all the way to the bank.
Everybody's happy. He gets a job in the NFL, they get a ton of money.
Glad it worked out that way.
Yeah.
Indeed, and shame on the Rams for not taking advantage of that as well. 12 minutes now after the hour. Yes, there have been a whole series of stories lately about hacking. Maybe we shouldn't be surprised at this anymore. Remember, the Chinese military accused of hacking into the websites of American corporations. We had the big problem with Target getting targeted by hackers. There's a story out this week that Home Depot has a similar problem as Target, it looks like. So maybe no surprise that over the weekend, we learned over the Labor Day weekend, the nude photographs of over 100 Hollywood celebrities, most notably actress Jennifer Lawrence, those nude photos stolen from the iCloud somehow and then circulated out on the internet. How did this happen? What can we do about it? Charlie Warzel is the tech editor for Buzzfeed, joins us on our news line again this morning. Charlie, good to have you back.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So how did this happen, first of all? These photos, I understand, were stored on the iCloud. So is it there's some problem with the cloud that's not protecting documents that they thought were protected?
So this is, this is a pretty large leak in general. Like you said, there are hundreds of photos, multiple young women who were victims here, all celebrities of some kind, and what seems to have happened, at least in the case of Jennifer Lawrence and Kate Upton, are that it seems to be that someone had access to the iCloud. But yesterday afternoon, Apple, after about 40 hours of silence, released a very sort of vague statement saying that there wasn't any larger breach of the iCloud, a wide breach of the iCloud security, meaning there's not something that is allowing a hacker to penetrate anyone's iCloud system. So my security, your security, other celebrities is probably okay. So what probably happened, what people believe happened is that as has happened in the past, hackers, targeted these specific accounts and then used what's called a brute force tactics, meaning they had an unlimited number of password guesses and probably ran some programs, some scripts to basically do these millions, if not billions, of permutations and crack through. It's a very targeted sort of thing, but it's also something that's happened in the past, and iCloud has some sort of still has a lot of lax security in terms of how I can go about getting into your account.
Now, if somebody does that, it seems to me, number one, they've got a lot of time on their hands to run through all these passwords over and over and over again. But what do they get out of it? Do they get any money out of it, or is it just the thrill of breaking in? Who are these people? Do we know? Of course, we don't know. If we did, right?
That's the difficulty. So the real thing that's going on here, this large collection that sort of came about on Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. A lot of security experts I've talked to believe that this is something that's been kind of amassed over a long period of time, months, but probably years. And so this isn't necessarily somebody going and spending their weekend afternoon doing this. These are people who go on these online message boards that are specifically looking and taking requests from other individuals to break into these accounts. And to do so, they get donations via Bitcoin. And so a lot of the people who initially posted these things sort of ransomed the photos. And they had, these big screenshots of their file folders with the pictures mostly blurred out, and said, "I have all these pictures. I'll be taking donations." And so the idea is probably that certain people hacked into these accounts separately. Someone knew Jennifer Lawrence, someone Kate Upton, and then there did a lot of this sort of like backroom trading, picture for picture. I mean, it's a whole trade and it's a whole industry, and it's not necessarily. It doesn't stop with celebrities. If you go onto some of these forums, and I suggest that you don't,
thank you.
They have, they take requests from people who are looking for photos of their ex or photos of a person that they know from work. And as long as they have enough security information, they know, their first high school, they know, the make and model of their first car, some of these password security questions, it's possible that hackers can go and then do that and then get a ransom sum for it.
That's what has been tripping me out on this whole thing. Is like, I understand if you're a hacker, right? Like a Jennifer Lawrence or a Kate Upton or one of these celebrities is a high value target. If you're a bad guy and you're looking to go and get someone's personal information and personal private photos, they obviously are high value. But the idea that they're taking requests and that any of us are vulnerable if one person wants to go in that direction, that they can do that. Is that just sort of the future now? This is just how we live now?
Yeah, to a degree, yes. I mean, I think that there are issues here. This is very popular with iCloud because iCloud has some lax security. In 2012, a reporter for Wired got hacked, sort of in the same manner that a lot of these sort of things happen. These sort of request hacks, and the way that it works is Apple has two-factor security, which means it's a second layer of security protection, but that doesn't work for iCloud. It doesn't. So it's very easy, if I learn the answer to a lot of your security questions, for me to call Apple up and say, "Hey, I'm you, and I lost my password. Here's my username." And then they say, "Okay, you need to answer these questions." And if my Facebook is chock full of all the information of my for my security questions, you can just look on the page and figure it out. So, I mean, it's a little bit of like, this is the way we live now, but also people are still very lax about their passwords in general, and very lax about their security questions. And I think it's sort of a little bit of meeting, we all need to meet in the middle. People need to step up their own personal security, and then these companies need to do absolutely everything in their power. I mean, your phone is basically a little device that has every piece of personal and important information about you. And, these things need to be protected with the absolute highest measures of security.
Over the last several years, it's been so much about the cloud, the cloud, the cloud. You can keep it all in the cloud, everything. I have never been all that comfortable with that. Like, something's not right with the fact that I could take a picture here and then it shows up on my computer back at home. Are we going to get away from the cloud? Do you think this is going to scare people away from that whole idea, or do you just think people are going to get better about their own personal security? Because personally, I'm never going to be the type of person that changes his password every 3 weeks. I'm just not going to do it.
Right. I don't think people are going to go away from it because, frankly, it's incredibly convenient.
Yeah.
And honestly, a fantastic invention. And the security aside, it is great. But it also is, we gave it a couple of people, were obviously talking about this online, and we gave it a very friendly sounding name. I mean, you could also call the cloud a server farm that we don't understand control, and that's the nature of it. We gave it a very friendly name. Oh yeah, it's got it in the cloud, and frankly, it's a complicated bit of machinery that I would argue most users have no clue how it functions.
No, absolutely, yeah. And Peter, I got to agree with you. I have a hard enough time with one password, let alone with two.
Yeah,
let alone what some people have suggested, or let alone changing my password over and over. I mean, you almost have to accept that there ain't nothing that's not public anymore,
right.
Particularly if you are in the public eye at all. Charlie, thanks so much for your good reporting on this, and especially for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Charlie Warzel from Buzzfeed at buzzfeed.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Did you commit to change the world?
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, the next half hour, Christina Bellantoni, editor-in-chief of Roll Call, will be Roll Call, one of the two newspapers serving Capitol Hill here in Washington, D.C., will be in the studio with us. Tomorrow, big event planned. We've talked before about efforts around the country. Isolated little protest on behalf of fast food workers and sit-downs in one city or after another, or shutdowns in one city after another. Tomorrow, it is a nationwide fast food protest in 6 cities: Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, and Seattle. Making the case that we can't survive on 725, as the chant goes, and putting pressure on state and city officials to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour for fast food workers. Two things, these nationwide strikes are being coordinated by the SEIU and its president, Mary Kay Henry. Two things that we can expect about them. Number one, this is, again, more widespread than in one day than ever before. Two, that the SEIU, which doesn't represent fast food workers, is asking the people they do represent, especially home care health workers, to come out in support of the fast food workers. And three, they have said that there will be some examples of civil disobedience along with these strikes against fast food outlets in those 6 cities again. Look for that tomorrow. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. The fast food nationwide strike in Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, and Seattle.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, there is a lot going on this morning. A ceasefire and then a non-ceasefire in the Ukraine. Release of this horrible, horrific, shocking video of the execution of a second American journalist, Steven Sotloff. President Obama on his way to the NATO summit in Estonia. The White House announcing yesterday that they may, not announcing, but admitting that they may delay any action on immigration reform, executive action on immigration, until after the midterm elections. And in the middle of all of that, Labor Day's over, and so people are starting to think about, hey, there's some midterm elections going on. How about it? Roll call is all over all of the above. The editor-in-chief, if you will, please, of Roll Call, give her this respect that she is due, Christina Bellantoni, in studio with us this morning. Christina, good to see you.
Good morning, Bill.
I mean, you know, Roll Call, you just had the summer off, right?
Please. We actually, summer's a busy time for us because we send reporters out on the road to cover these midterm elections. So we had reporters, and I think it ended up being 12 states. We had 17 different datelines over the course of August because we don't print a newspaper for the last 2 weeks while Congress is in recess, but we do continue to publish online, you know, really extensively. And then we're also doing the 50 Richest Members of Congress project that's going to go live on Monday, where we physically data enter all 541 senators, members, and delegates and put in all of their financial disclosures to give people a semi-accurate picture of their finances because that's not a really clear system.
I look forward to that. That's coming up Monday?
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, like the United States Senate is really the millionaires club, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Mostly senators that are at the top 50, but we rank all 541. So there are people, you can see like the younger, generally more progressive members of the House, for House Democrats, a lot of them have basically nothing but liabilities, very few assets. And then the way that they are forced to give these ranges, someone could have anywhere between 50 million and $150 billion. You would never know. So Jay Rockefeller is actually not the number one most rich person, except he probably is, right? Because he's got these family trusts that probably have billions of dollars in them, but they don't have to disclose that. So we start with the lowest range, subtract liabilities, and that's the number that we use.
Senator Feinstein's still the wealthiest member of the Senate, wasn't she?
She's not. But she's on the list.
She's
What's going to happen now that John Kerry's not in the Senate anymore? He used to be like...
Yeah, he was number one for quite a while. And that's also interesting because many people are rich because of their spouse. Sure. So Mike McCall, he's not number one this year, but he's going to be at the top top of the list. He is rich because of his spouse. A lot of other people have acquired their assets. Shelley Pingree from Maine, for example, because of who they're married to.
Now, how is it that some people come to Washington with nothing? And they serve here for 20 years, and then suddenly they're millionaires. They don't make that much money.
So a lot of this, there's nothing nefarious about having smart mutual fund investments, right? And people continue to build a lot toward that. A lot of it is family trusts, but some of it is assets. And the way that the disclosures work, they don't have to say, yes, I own a $7 million home on East Capitol Street. If you're, for example, a senator who's in a tough re-election battle, you don't actually have to disclose that. You have to disclose the size of your mortgage. Well, if you don't have one, you're never even going to know about that house. You don't have to disclose the size of your personal residence back home either. So that is, it's very opaque, and that's something that we try to shed some light on as much as we can by reading through these disclosures and really putting them in context.
To me, the best example of what's wrong with this whole system we saw yesterday when it was announced that Eric Cantor is going to work for a Wall Street firm. Wall Street firm, right? Whatever it is. Yeah. He has zero experience in finance or banking or any of that. He's going to work for this firm, and he's making $2 million a year, and he gets $1.5 million for just signing up with them.
Not to mention he'll have a congressional pension for the rest of his life.
I don't have a congressional pension.
By the way, I have no experience either, and I do that job for $1 million. I just want to put that out there.
That's very generous.
I'll undercut him a little bit.
Yeah. But, it's the revolving door, isn't it?
Well, it's about connections.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that, you might not be able to get the deal signed if you're a former member of Congress, but you're going to be able to make the introduction or make sure the email gets read.
He won't even get it signed. He won't even understand what it's all about. But you're right. It's making the phone call that says, would you be willing to meet with my business associates, right? And to discuss this legislation or something like that. Yeah. I know. Yeah, and as I pointed out yesterday, and the New York Times points out this morning, it's not that he changed jobs. He's continuing to do the same job,
right?
Working for Wall Street. He's just getting paid more.
Well,
my comment, you don't have to join in there. After all, she is editor-in-chief of Roll Call. You mentioned that you have had people out in the field covering these midterm elections, and you've come back with some interesting findings. Let's start with the most important agenda most people believe in these midterm elections is control of the United States Senate.
Right.
You have identified the 10 most vulnerable senators. 9 out of 10 are Democrats.
That's right. So what we do, we're ranking them for the first time. So once a month, we're going out there and doing this. And there is actually a little bit of movement on this month's list. So last month, John Walsh from Montana was at the top. And we don't look at open seats here. These are people who are serving in the Senate who are vulnerable.
Who are running for re-election.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And so there's 10. Sometimes there aren't 10, right? So we're doing this in order. So the person who's number 10 is probably not that vulnerable when you think about 33 people are up for re-election. A lot of people are in safe seats.
I didn't see John Walsh on the list at all this time.
So John Walsh was number 1, but he said he was not going to run for the seat after the whole plagiarism scandal.
That's right.
So this is now a seat that is very likely to flip to the Republicans. And so that's totally off the list. So moving up on the list is not who everybody thinks it might be. A lot of people are saying Mark Pryor in Arkansas is the most vulnerable senator. We're actually saying,
or Kay Hagan.
We're actually saying that it's Mary Landrieu.
Mary Landrieu.
So she's in a state that Mitt Romney won by, it's either 12 or 17 points. I think it's 12. That's a big margin. I actually am a little more bullish on her chances than our collective political team on that, just because her family is so tied into the state. But this recent thing with
and just
her
because
home
she's
being
a really fierce campaigner.
Sure. She's faced tough elections before. She's also a chairman. She can say a lot that she's done for her home state. But the recent issue with saying that she basically lives in Washington and a series of really brutal ads based on those reports is not helping her. So this is a tough race. She's up against Bill Cassidy, who's from northern Louisiana. And so we're making that number 1. And then Mark Pryor is on that list. Kay Hagan from North Carolina is on that list.
Mark Pryor on number 2. He's been up in the polls, but not by much.
Right.
But
the thing that is interesting about Arkansas is a lot of people think about Mark Pryor's dad, David Pryor. They like him a lot. He's using David Pryor in ads. But you've also got Tom Cotton, who's this young, not that experienced politically person that a lot of people don't necessarily warm up to. They don't love Mark Pryor either, but they're not feeling it with Tom Cotton. He's not like the most gregarious or interesting candidate. So they're pretty much neck and neck. That's going to be a race that comes down to turnout, and I'm going to expect to see the Clintons spend a lot of time in Arkansas.
Number 3, Mark Begish from Alaska.
Yeah. So this is another state that is not a Barack Obama-friendly state. The Republicans got the candidate they wanted there. They could have had the whole repeat of the Lisa Murkowski nightmare a couple years ago. Joe Miller was looking strong for a while, but they got this guy, Dan Sullivan, who is got state experience. He's well known statewide, and they're going to run neck and neck probably with a lot of money.
Saying, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
They're going to spend a lot of money on this race. And in general, incumbency helps, but it's he's a freshman. It's a 50-50 race probably till the end. And by the way, it takes them a long time to count votes in Alaska. So we might still be waiting because Louisiana, their first election is actually a jungle primary. So we could wait till December for that result, and we could wait for them to count votes in Alaska.
Jungle primary. So if nobody wins it outright or gets what?
It's 50. You have to get more than 50%. So it'll go to a runoff between the two main candidates.
Man. Yeah, and Mary Lander's been in that situation before, I think. And then we get to Kay Hagan in North Carolina.
Yeah, so North Carolina is an interesting state. I consider it similar to Virginia because of its demographic shifts. It's getting younger, it's getting more diverse, it's getting a little bit more liberal. Yet, in 2010, it was one of the states most affected by the Tea Party wave. You saw Democrats lose their seats, you saw a lot of retirements, and you saw the state house turn over. But there's a bit of a backlash from that. The actual voters in North Carolina are frustrated with Republicans by name ID right now. So that could help Kay Hagan. She has been critical of the president. He was just there giving a speech about his veterans policy, and she was saying you haven't done enough, like you need to step up. This is a very veteran-heavy state. But Tom Tillis is the state speaker. He's got a long record. There's a ton of money in the state. It's not that expensive to advertise. So this is yet another really close contest till the end.
She's run a good campaign, too.
Yeah, some people think that. Yeah. She's been out there pretty talking to a lot of voters, not necessarily talking to us.
I was surprised to see on your list Al Franken and Mark Warner. Sure. I mean, from what I know, I just saw an article this morning in the Washington Post that Ed Gillespie's 25 points behind Mark Warner.
Which is why, if you read what it says, we say that, this is only for the sake of there's no one else. Because John Walsh moved up the list. He's the 10th most vulnerable senator.
Yeah.
He's only going to lose if there's some massive thing that becomes a Republican wave. Mark Warner remains very popular. He has plenty of money. Ed Gillespie is not really considered a deep, entrenched political campaigner there. I mean, really, what a lot of people in Virginia believe is that he's setting up a run for governor one day, Ed Gillespie.
Right. And same with Al Franken, not that margin, but from everything I've seen, Al...
The Republicans like their candidate against him, and they do feel like perhaps they have a chance, but it's only if there's a wave. That's why he's at the bottom.
He's kept his head down. He's not been a show horse. He's been, Al Franken, I think, a workhorse in the Senate. The people that I've talked to, that he's in pretty good shape.
Right.
Yeah. Do you agree with that? The one Republican on the list.
Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
So
from your lips to God's ears.
It's hilarious to me that the Democrats are so confident in this state. Now, they're not saying they're going to win, but they really think they have a strong chance there. And that, again, stems from the Clintons. Bill Clinton identified Allison Lundergan Grimes a long time ago, saying she is an up-and-coming Democrat. Let's make sure she's the candidate. You remember he imploded Ashley Judd's chances there. And she's still running strong against McConnell, who is incredibly unpopular back home. Now, Harry Reid faced the same problem and ended up having a candidate who was just not going to win. And so he barely squeaked by, really lucked out in 2010, given the weight, given everything else. Is Mitch McConnell going to be so lucky? I think so. I mean, this is Kentucky. This is not a Democratic state. Barack Obama is deeply unpopular. But if it ends up being close and the money is going to continue to be really intense there, and if she continues to be a good candidate, the Democrats have a fighting chance.
It's true. Barack Obama is incredibly unpopular in Kentucky. The one person who is more unpopular is
Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell.
Sure is.
I love when Allison Lundergan Grimes says, I'm only 35, but that's Mitch McConnell's approval rating, too. 35%.
The interesting thing about this is Mitch McConnell could lose, and the Republicans could still win the Senate. Like, there is a pathway to that on November 4th. So Then what? You have John Cornyn, majority leader? I mean, it's going to be a free-for-all.
Yeah. And then 435 members of the House up for re-election, the 10 most vulnerable House members with Christina Bellantoni from Roll Call. Rollcall.com. Even if you don't get the paper where you live, you can always follow it at rollcall.com. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
11 minutes before the top of the hour. In studio with us, Christina Bellantoni is the editor-in-chief of Roll Call. The newspaper covers everything going on at the Hill and at the White House, and you can follow them at rollcall.com. Christina, the big news of the day is that there is the first Dunkin' Donuts ever established in Los Angeles, just made its appearance. Peter has been tracking this story.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier.
He's trying to talk us into sending him out there, right?
For a field report.
You got to go to the ground, right? You got to make sure.
Yeah.
So here's the deal, because you asked where it was.
Well, I want to know where in LA.
I just knew it was Los Angeles.
Is East LA? Is it Brentwood? Is it West Hollywood?
All right.
Beverly Hills?
So technically it's Santa Monica. It's Santa Monica.
The better part of LA.
So yeah,
that's pretty good. Yeah. What do you mean technically?
Well, no, I mean, I was giving you the where it is. 12th and Wilshire Boulevard. 12th Street and Wilshire Boulevard.
All right. I know right where it is.
Here's the thing, though. A donut is not a donut is not a donut, right? Like the air where you make the donut affects how the donut tastes.
It's like bagels in New York.
And
bagels,
sourdough bread in
water,
San Francisco.
Exactly.
They'll do a good job.
But you know what? Like LA already has such a donut culture.
No,
you could probably throw a rock and hit better donuts than the Dunkin' Donuts.
The one that's always getting destroyed in the movies, right?
The one, yeah, the big donut.
I don't like
that
donuts.
big one is not far from there, but actually.
Okay.
All right. Before we get into some of the,
you didn't like donuts?
I did. Nobody noticed. Yeah.
I noticed. We all noticed.
I'm with you. Headline this morning: Congress on track to be the worst ever at passing laws. Now, the number of bills is not necessarily the measure of a good Congress or a bad Congress.
This is true.
Right, but still, this Congress is...
And this is the impression Americans have, regardless of whether it's a good Congress or bad Congress. Americans feel like Congress isn't doing anything, feels like it's out of touch with them, doesn't understand their needs, and actually comes to Washington and doesn't do anything. So that's a problem.
All of which is true.
Well, it's a problem for the midterms, but it's not actually going to change a whole lot of things for the midterms. So one thing that I would say when you talk to lawmakers about that number, they say, one, people don't understand how difficult it is because you've got a divided government, blah, blah, blah. House Republicans have this entire campaign ready to go called Stuck in the Senate, where they're going to demonize Harry Reid even more than they already do and showcase all of the bills that they've already passed that are just sitting there in the Senate. So that will help them towards trying to make Mitch McConnell that majority leader, of course. But when you talk to them about the actual laws that got passed, they avoided massive calamity. You know, they had this government shutdown and then figured it out. And then they actually passed a compromised budget. Now, of course, a lot of people don't understand that compromised budget is about to run out and we're going to have to do another continuing resolution. And there's this like showdown over immigration that's happening. So this is why I love my job so much.
So the bottom line is, even though it may be the most do nothing, right, or the least productive Congress in the history of Congress, will this impact chance or improve Democrats' chances of taking leadership of the House this year?
Absolutely not. No, in fact, their chances are pretty bad of anything.
They'd have to win
17.
17, that's right.
And Republicans think they're standing to gain 5 to 6 seats on their end. I was at an event now more than a year ago, or it was about a year ago, down in Charlottesville with Larry Sabato, and at the time the shutdown had just ended. So it was I guess November 1st, something like that. And I predicted that the Democrats would gain some seats, and I know, that's on record somewhere, and I'm saying it again now, and I was wrong. At the time, that's what it looked like, but it is actually not going to happen.
All right. Christina, thanks so much for coming in this morning. It's great to get up to date on the Congress and the Senate and the House, and 2 months to go. It's going to be a rock and roll time for the next couple of months. Exactly.
Thanks.
Again, it's rollcall.com. Thanks, Christina. See you again soon. I'll be back with a parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, if there are any doubt about the kind of people we're dealing with, there's no doubt any longer after the video yesterday of the execution by beheading of American journalist Steve Sotloff. These people at ISIS aren't religious zealots. They aren't even human beings. They're ugly, evil, sadistic, barbaric, dangerous animals that must be destroyed before they seize any more territory or kill any more innocent people. And I must admit, this is one time I don't understand President Obama's reluctance to act. I really expected him, after release of that video yesterday, to announce that he had ordered airstrikes against ISIS targets in Syria, where we know they are headquartered. Instead, he left the White House, hopped on Air Force One, left for Estonia without doing anything in response. I know he is no drama Obama, but this is one time a little bit of drama would have been welcome. Folks, that's my parting shot for today. Have a great Wednesday, and then don't forget, come on back and join us again tomorrow morning. We'll be looking for you.
This is the Bill
Have a
Press
good one.
Show.